But in an adjoining room is 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffy. Before the night is out, she'll be brutally murdered and thrown into a lake. Her body is discovered 1 year later. Paul stands trial for her murder and that of another teenager, Kristen French.
We love you, Kristen, and we're constantly in our thoughts and our prayers.
But Karla is not on trial with him.
Nobody died before Karla got involved.
But was justice really served? This is the incredible case of the Ken Barbie killers. Karla Homolka grows up in a normal, stable, and happy family in Ontario, Canada. The eldest child of 3, she's pretty, smart, and popular at school. At the age of 17, she falls in love with 22-year-old Paul Bernardo. He's a hard-working junior accountant with a bright future. Bernardo proposes to Homolka on Christmas Eve, 1989. In the summer of 1991, 21-year-old Homolka marries 26-year-old Bernardo in a fairy tale wedding in historic Niagara-on-the-Lake. No expense is spared. Homolka and Bernardo appear to be the perfect couple. Until January 4th, 1993, when Karla Homolka walks into her local police station in St. Catharines, Ontario, with 2 black eyes. The next day, she files charges against her husband for domestic assault. Police in Toronto hear of the charges. They're intrigued because since mid-1987, there have been 14 rapes or attempted rapes 70 miles away in Scarborough, Toronto. Bernardo was once interviewed by police because his face matches a sketch of the suspect, but fails to rouse further suspicion and is eliminated from their investigation. Fueled by news of the assault charge, police decide Paul Bernardo is worth a closer look. Homolka is scared because she's hiding a terrible secret.
I think that with the police coming around to investigate her and her relationship with Bernardo, she was afraid that they might stumble on something.
2 teenage girls have gone missing within the last year. One is 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffy. The other is 15-year-old Kristen French.
Kristen, if you can hear or read this, you want to know that we are thinking of you and that everything can be done is being done. And we'll get you back and we'll quit.
But the 2 girls are found dead. Kristen's body in a ditch. 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffy's in a lake. Homolka's secret is that she knows what happened to them, and it involved her and her husband. Homolka's fear is that if her husband is implicated in their killing, then she too can be charged with aiding and abetting him. It's a crime that could carry a life sentence. So she calls an attorney in her hometown of St. Catharines for help.
He decided to trade the information that she had on 2 very high-profile homicides for some degree of immunity, if not total immunity.
Homolka tells her attorney that Bernardo has murdered the girls, and he forced her to help him. To avoid her facing life in prison for murder, her attorney proposes a plea bargain.
She would plead guilty to manslaughter in relation to each of Leslie Mahaffy and Kristen French for 5 years apiece, total 10 years. And on the condition that she would tell 110% of the truth to the police and would testify and so on and so forth.
Homolka agrees to tell the police everything and promises to give evidence against her husband. The police then search their home but find nothing. So, based solely on her confession, Paul Bernardo is arrested and charged with kidnapping, rape, and murder of 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffy and 15-year-old Kristen French. On July 6, 1993, Homolka is convicted of 2 counts of manslaughter and sentenced to just 10 years in prison, as had been agreed. The press are banned from reporting the plea bargain hearing. Bernardo is held in jail, awaiting trial for murder. He waits 2 years. Meanwhile, in September 1994, John Rosen becomes Bernardo's defense attorney. But as he begins to study the case, he makes an alarming discovery.
I was very upset. I was so upset, I excused myself. I went into the bathroom, got myself together, and I said, okay, that's the way it is, that's the way it is.
In the case against Paul Bernardo, his defense team discovers shocking videotapes of him and his wife Karla torturing their teenage victims. The tapes leave no doubt that Bernardo, at the very least, is a savage rapist.
Could I get Mr. Bernardo off completely? Not in light of those tapes. From the tapes, the jury would quickly conclude that he was one of the abductors, that he unlawfully confined, that he sexually assaulted each of the girls.
So Rosen prepares an unusual defense. He'll argue that although Bernardo may have done terrible things, the girls were only murdered because of Homolka.
Nobody died before Karla got involved. Karla was involved, Leslie died, then Kristen, okay?
If he can convince the jury that it was Homolka who was behind the murders, he'll tell them they must reduce the first-degree murder charge against Bernardo.
And there is a possibility that he could be found guilty of second-degree or manslaughter. So while I was not in a position to work towards a complete acquittal, I was in a position to try and get a lesser charge at the end of the day, or lesser conviction.
On May 18, 1995, the trial of Paul Bernardo begins here at the Toronto Superior Courthouse. The families of his 2 victims, 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffy and 15-year-old Kristen French, attend court every day.
Paul Bernardo has been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of unlawful confinement, 2 counts of kidnapping, 2 counts of aggravated sexual assault, and 1 count of causing an indignity to a human body.
To each of the 9 charges, Bernardo stands and replies in a loud, clear voice, "Not guilty." Everything would now depend on whether John Rosen could prove Homolka instigated the murders.
I had to actually demonstrate that for the jury as to how unreliable she was, and ultimately put her in a position where I could, with good authority, put to her that she's the actual killer.
Eric Broadhurst would be one of the 12 members of the jury Rosen would have to convince. He vividly remembers the first time he saw Paul Bernardo in the courtroom.
He was filled with confidence, tall, blonde-haired, good-looking, physically fit, blue-piercing eyes, and very aloof. I think from day one, he figured he was going to get out of this.
Key to the trial will be the interpretation of the content of the videotapes. The prosecution will argue that the tapes show Bernardo is the killer, but the defense believes their confidence is misplaced.
They began on the presumption that he was so evil and so bad that it was a slam dunk. And it wasn't.
The prosecution opens their case against